G'day athletes, Keith the Kilt Man here. Welcome to another episode of the Kilted Athlete Podcast. I've titled this episode the Fitness Advice Hall of Shame. This is where I'm putting the advice that you may have heard over and over again, outdated advice or advice that people come up with that is actually nonsense. There's quite a few of these, so I've only selected 5 for this episode, so I may revisit this title at some stage in the future and do a part 2, maybe even a part 3, because there is some definitely some bad advice out there, some bad tips, and they've been disproven time and time again, or debunked time and time again, but people still do regurgitate them, bring them up over and over again. You might see them written on fitness motivational posters and things like that. Um, yeah, so all the tips, all the advice, all the quotes out there um, that are not only nonsense, but probably um, advising people to do dangerous things. Um, I'm putting these in the Hall of Shame, the Fitness Advice Hall of Shame. But before we go any further, if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do so. It's going to take like 2 seconds of your time to do this. Gives me a good feeling because I look at the stats and see that someone else has subscribed to it. Pop a comment in there, share with your friends, do all that stuff. To make my stats look good. And look, it's not just about making the stats look good, but I do enjoy seeing like the interaction that people are putting in, people liking it. I like seeing the graphs where when I release a new episode, there's a spike in the listens. I enjoy seeing people from different countries listening. I often wonder how they cope with my Australian accent, whether they have to get out an Australian like translator kind of app or something to know what I'm talking about. I'm not sure, but yeah, it is quite good to see people from different countries um, listening in. It probably strikes a few people as a bit odd. They've probably clicked on the Kilted Athlete expecting someone in a thick Scottish accent to be talking, and they've found this bloke talking Australian, not just Australian, but Queensland accent. I grew up in Queensland, so it's a little bit more distinctive than accent than the southern states. It's a bit hard to get rid of. I think it just you can, if you grow up in Australia, you can kind of pick the difference, the slight difference in someone that's growing up in the northern states. They have more of I guess, a kind of a more drawn out, more pronunciated Australian accent. But anyway, I'm waffling again, so let's get back on topic. Um, so as I said, this is the Hall of Shame. I'm going to name and shame some of those really bad bits of advice or bad quotes that you hear sometimes about fitness, and some of these quotes or some of these tips, some of these bits of advice just won't go away. So the first one, number one, the first one on my Hall of Shame, and you've all heard it before. You've all heard the saying, "No pain, no gain," and this needs to be put to sleep. This saying needs to die. It just absolutely just needs to go away. People need to stop saying it. This came about. Look, probably about the 80s, maybe the 70s. And look, there's a lot of good things that came out in the 70s and 80s, a lot of good music and stuff, but um, this definitely wasn't one of them. I think it was born out of maybe good intention, probably trying to encourage people that are kind of saying, oh, this is uncomfortable. What I'm doing here is uncomfortable. Um, the weight I'm lifting, it's just putting stress on my muscles. Running this fast is it's difficult, and and I think pain was like a very bad word. Like it's not a good word to attach to this. When you're trying to encourage somebody to push through this level of discomfort. But I guess look, people like to rhyme things, and pain and gain seem to rhyme. So I don't know who came up with this phrase, but it's time that we got rid of this phrase altogether. And look, any kind of motivational quote that has the word pain in it needs to go away, needs to disappear. Pain is an indication that something is wrong. If there's pain, you need to stop what you're doing, because if you don't stop, you're probably going to do yourself more damage. Pain is not an indicator of how hard you're working. Pain is an indicator that something's wrong and you need to stop. Now, I do understand, being a personal trainer myself, that some people kind of look for one of a better word. I'm going to use the word sook. So there are people that when things start getting tough, when things start getting uncomfortable, they start to have a bit of a sook, and they start to try and find an exit. So you need to know the difference between when something's tough, when something's uncomfortable, when something is a little bit stressful, and pain, because being tough is good. Being out of your comfort zone is good. Being put under stress, a, a bit of stress, I talked about the stress curve, I believe, in my last episode about resilience, but being put under a bit of stress is good, because that's how we achieve things. That's how we get better, is by being put under stress. But if there's pain, you need to stop. If I am bench pressing and I suddenly get pain in my shoulder, I'm not going to push through it. I'm not going to tell myself no pain, no gain. I'm pushed through because there is something wrong. I know if there's pain in my shoulder, there is something wrong. But if I'm bench pressing and I'm actually like pushing quite hard because the weight is quite heavy, I'm going to push through it, because that's what the exercise is all about, doing something tough. But yeah, if there's pain, you need to stop. In fact, I would go as far as to say the opposite of no pain, no gain. If there is pain and you push through the pain, there will be no gain, because if you push through the pain, something more serious is going to happen, and it's probably going to put you out of training for a lot longer than if you just stopped then before pushing on. Now I mentioned before, any quote that mentions pain, any motivational quote or advice um, that encourages you to push through pain needs to go away, needs to die. There is a lot of quotes out there like this. Another one is another one I've heard is pain is weakness leaving the body, and that's just egotistical bullshit. It's basically like insinuating that if you don't push through pain, you're weak. So yeah, no pain, no gain. Yeah, nah, chuck that one in the bin. Chuck that quote in the bin. If you have any any posters, old 80s posters on your wall at home saying no pain, no gain, rip them down, chuck them in the bin. Now, the second bit of advice from my Hall of Shame is kind of the opposite to the first one. This is like going the other extreme, the other end of the scale. And that's when people say, listen to your body. Now, once again, I don't think this was born out of bad intentions. I think there is some merit in the concept of this bit of advice, but it kind of goes against everything we're trying to achieve with training. If I'm lifting heavy weights, my muscles are under strain. They're my body's telling me that it doesn't want to do this. If I'm doing sprints, interval sprints, and my heart rate's really high, um, you know, I'm struggling for breath, my legs are burning. My body's not liking what I'm doing right there and then. So, to be honest, my body's probably trying to tell me to stop. But if I listen to my body every time, I I wouldn't be training because every time I train, I'm doing something that my body is finding challenging. If I listen to my body, I will have never run a marathon. I would never bench pressed 100 kilos. Hey, a lot of days I probably wouldn't have even got out of bed before 9 a.m. So listening to your body is kind of like going against what we're trying to achieve with our training. So look, like I said, this is opposite extreme to the other one. No pain, no gain. Um, Pushing yourself is good. That's where progress happens. Challenging yourself. As long as there's no pain, as long as you're safe, like as long as if you're bench pressing something that you've never pressed before, you make sure you have a spotter there with you, of course, as long as everything's, as safe as you can make it, and as long as there's no pain, um, pushing yourself is good. Pushing yourself is like the whole purpose of our training. So while listening to your body, it was probably born out of good intentions. Um, I it's mostly used as a cop out. It's like my body's telling me not to run any faster or to lift any heavier. My body's telling me to stay in my comfort zone. My body's telling me to stay in bed. Um, so yeah, listen to your body. Chuck that one out as well. Stress is good. Small amounts of stress is good. Um, Once again, if you want to know more about the stress curve, go back to my last episode on resilience. Stress actually, whether it's with weights, whether it's something that we're doing at work, kind of doing something we're not used to that's outside of our comfort zone, that's how we get better at things. Um, so stress, small amounts of stress is productive, it's good. Without stress, we would not achieve anything. Um, so when your body is under stress and it's telling you it needs to stop, um, you need to stop listening to your body. Unless, of course, there is pain, then you need to stop. So the next one I want to talk about, and this is probably the hardest concept, or one of the hardest concepts to get through to people that I train, is the 3 sets of 10 advice. So this is born out of, I guess, when you're doing a workout, and I know I often get asked, when I'm instructing people how many reps to do of a certain exercise. But here's the thing, your muscles don't count. Your head counts. Your muscles don't count the number of reps that you do. What you're trying to achieve when you're doing a a set of reps. So a set for, I'll bring this back to basics a bit. A set is a number of however many reps until you need a rest. A rep is like one repetition of that particular exercise. So, for example, if you're doing push-ups, one complete push-up from up to down and back up again is a rep, a repetition. If you do a certain number of push-ups and then stop to have a rest, then that is a set. So there's kind of this perception that each set should have 10 reps. That's the optimum number of reps per set. But your muscles don't have a counter in them. There's no thing that says, oh, I've got to 10, so I'm going to like grow bigger now. Your mind does the counting, but all your muscle is concerned about is the stress it's been put under. And it's the amount of stress it's put under that is going to make the difference, not the number of reps that you've done. So when you're doing a set of reps, you want to be doing as many reps as you can until you can't do any more with with, without sacrificing good technique. So if you're doing those push-ups, as many push-ups as you can do until your form can no longer hold up. By doing that, you've maximized the tension that you'll put that muscle under. If you just stop at 10, maybe you could have done 12, 15, maybe you could have done 20. So you're not really taking that muscle to full potential. On the other end of the scale, you might have done 6 perfect ones, but then to get to 10, you've sacrificed good technique, and best case scenarios, the last 4 have just been junk reps, which means they haven't achieved anything, or worst case scenario, you've done something dangerous and injured yourself. And so I say this a lot in my episodes, that you need to be going until you can't do any more, until you can't do any more good reps. Not until your number, the magic number in your head says you need to stop. Obviously, take safety into consideration. Once again, if you're bench pressing a really large amount, and you've only just got that last rep up, is it going to be safe to do one more rep, or should you call it then? But yeah, you should be going to maximum fatigue with each set, apart from like a warm-up set where you're just going through the warm-up motion to get that muscle activation, to get the range of motion going. But each set after that should be until you can't do anymore. So I always say, don't count your reps, make your reps count. So yeah, number 3, on my Hall of Shame fitness advice, 3 sets of 10. And I kind of still see that in a lot of training programs and stuff there, to do 3 sets of 10. When I write up a training program, I usually do 3 sets, maybe 4 sets, however many sets. Between 3, 4, maybe 5 sets per exercise is good. But when I write up a training program, I don't write how many reps per set, for the exact reason that I just talked about. Number 4 on my nonsense list is, and this is nonsense and it's been disproven so many times, but it still keeps coming up, is if I do lower weights and higher reps, I will tone my muscles. This is more prominent, um, not to try to be like sexist or anything like that, but this is more prominent, something that I hear women saying, more often than men. And it's kind of a product of, I guess, like magazines and like home gym equipment. It's a product of marketing, really. The whole word tone is a product of marketing. That tone looks that people are looking for. There's two factors at play here. One is a lower body fat percentage, and two is bigger muscles. And with the muscle side of things, there's only two things you can do to change your muscles. You can either make them get bigger or get smaller. You can't tone them. You can't change the length of them. You can't change anything else about them. You can only change their size. Now, when you're lifting a weight, if you're if you're taking each set to the point where you can't do any more reps, doesn't matter if that's 5 reps or 50 reps, you're still going to achieve the same result. The only difference is doing 50 reps is going to take a lot longer than doing 5 reps. So your workout ends up taking a lot longer. The other thing here too is this is kind of a bit of a subconscious cop out in a lot of cases. Some people, those little 1 kilo, 1.5 kilo dumbbells that they've been using for like the last 5 years is their comfort zone, and they don't want to break out of their comfort zone. So quite often, some people will use these same weights, not push themselves any harder, not go any heavier, um, because it's kind of like going a little bit heavy is kind of scary. So people kind of like look for advice to like confirm what they want to believe is true. It's called confirmation bias. So people will go, oh well, I don't want to lift any heavier than this 1.5 kilo dumbbell. So I did hear somewhere that lifting lighter weights and more reps will make me tone. So they kind of cling to that theory. And it doesn't matter how many times it gets debunked, they still cling to that. And look, you can take yourself to like failure to stress, you know. You can get a good workout with those 1.5 kilo dumbbells, but it's going to take a lot of reps, especially if you've been lifting this weight for 5 years. You're obviously going to be a lot stronger. That 10 reps that you started off with isn't going to cut it anymore. So you'll be doing, to achieve any sort of result, you'll be lifting these weights for 150 reps. But people aren't going to do that. They're going to do their 20 reps, maybe 30 reps, and think they've had a good workout. So another one on my list, my list of nonsense fitness advice. Number 4, lifting light weights with more reps will make me toned. And look, as I said, the word toned, it was a marketing word. It was made up by magazines, home gym equipment, um, just to sell stuff. The word toned, it's not a thing. Well, it is a thing. It's a look, but it's not something you can actually do to your muscles. Your muscles can grow bigger, your muscles can grow smaller. your muscles don't get toned. And the last one, number 5, I had to like picks for a few of them. As I said, there's lots of these myths out there. Um, so for my 5th one, I had to make a decision. I couldn't do them all in one episode, so I'll probably do a part 2, maybe even a part 3 of this at some stage. But here we go. Number 5, drum roll. Number 5 in my fitness advice hall of shame is you have to confuse your muscles. Now, I'm going to be really brutal about this one. If someone tries to tell you that, turn around, walk away. You do not need to confuse your muscles. Even if it was somehow possible to biologically confuse muscles, I don't know how that works. You don't need to confuse your muscles. In fact, keep your exercises simple and consistent. You don't need to be doing 12 different variations of each exercise or 15 different variations for each body part. You don't need to change your workout up every 2 weeks. When you find something that works, stick with it and be consistent. There's a big choice of exercises out there for each different muscle group. Some are good, some are not so good. I've talked in a lot of podcast episodes about my favorites, the one that I prefer, but there's other ones you can use as well. But once you get a good full body workout, stick with it. You don't need to change it up. What's more important is that you're consistently doing these workouts, consistently getting better, consistently getting stronger. And how are you going to know this if you're constantly changing the exercises that you're doing? If you're changing it up all the time, how are you going to know if you've progressed, if you've got any stronger at one particular lift? How are you going to track this if you're constantly changing it? Use the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Yes, sometimes I do vary my workouts, but that's more because of the situation I'm in. I might walk into the gym and, the barbell bench press is being used, so I'll do a dumbbell bench press. Or I might be on holidays with no access to a gym, so I'm doing a lot of body weight exercises. So sometimes I do change my workout up, but it's because of the situation, not because of some need to confuse my muscles. As I said, the important thing is that you are consistent. Find yourself a full body workout that works for you and be consistent. Whether that full body workout's done over one workout or, 2 or 3 workouts with a split, doesn't matter. It comes down to your availability, your time. And look, I've done previous episodes about how to design your own split. So you can backtrack to my back catalogue and check that one out. I think it was what split's best for you or something like that. But yes, once you work out, what's the workout that suits you, be consistent with it. You don't need to change it up. Don't need to confuse the muscles. I feel this has actually become even a bigger thing with things like TikTok and social media. People that come up with these fancy weird exercises and just throw them out there. So yeah, there's no need to change it, change up your workout. In fact, I would suggest not changing it up or changing it up as little as possible. You don't need to confuse the muscles. You just need to be consistent. So there, there you are, the first 5 entries to my fitness advice hall of shame. I'll just go through them once again. So you got number 1, no pain, no gain. Get rid of that advice. Chuck it out the window. It should have died back in the 70s or the 80s. Um, 80s music is still going strong now, but some of the fitness advice should never be repeated. Number two, listen to your body. Well, if challenging yourself, your body's going to keep telling you to stop. So, not such good advice. If you keep listening to your body, you're not going to achieve stuff. It kind of goes against what we're trying to do when we exercise. Number three sets of 10. Ditch the mentality that you have to do 10 reps per set. Just go until you can't do anymore. Because chances are, if you're just doing 10 reps of everything, you're not really doing much at all. Number four, low weight and high reps will tone my muscles. No, they will not. Muscles do not tone. Tone is a made up word that companies came up with to sell stuff. And number five, you have to confuse your muscles. You do not have to confuse your muscles. Keep it simple and be consistent. So there you are, guys. That's it. That's the end of my episode of fitness advice cryptoids. I thought I'd throw in the word cryptoid because a cryptoid is like a animal that people think exists, but science has not proven to exist. For example, a Loch Ness monster or a bunyip. Not that I'm having a go with anyone that thinks the Loch Ness monster or bunyips exist, but I thought cryptoid was a good word to use to describe some of these fitness myths. On the side note, just going off on a tangent there is actually a Loch Ness marathon. I would like to do that one year. It's in Scotland along Loch Ness. That would be um, quite, quite good to do one year. So yeah. So anyway, that's my episode. The first 5 entries to the fitness um, advice hall of shame, advice that should never see the light of day. Now, some of you might have noticed, so I haven't put out an episode for a couple of weeks. Um, the reason for that, I've been a little bit unwell and talking was a bit of a struggle for me for about a week or so. So I thought I'd better not, attempt to record an episode coughing and spluttering all the way through. It wouldn't have been ideal. So I do apologise for not bringing out another episode earlier. That's why I'm bringing this one out on a Monday instead of the usual Friday. I'm kind of playing catch up a bit. So there you go. I'm back now, talking as good as I ever did. Um, so back on track. There'll be another episode out this Friday. Now, in the last episode, I did talk about what was coming up. It was a few days before I was doing the treble breakwall buster at the Port Macquarie Running Festival. This is a running event that I've done for 10 years straight now. It was my 10th one, the one I've just done. And it consists of running a half marathon, which is 21.1 kilometers, followed by a 10 kilometer and then a 5 kilometer. So as I said, I'd done that 9 years in a row, and this year was my 10th year. So there's only 2 other people that had done all 10 of these events. So I was in quite good company with Brad and Mel being the only other 2 that had done all 10 of these events. Now, what I didn't say when I was talking about this in my last episode, that my training had taken a bit of a downward turn, and the reason being, a few weeks ago, think about 6 weeks before the event, I was on a training run and I injured my Achilles. So as I talked about, in the first myth that I busted in this episode, the whole no pain, no gain thing is not good. I knew something was wrong, so I kind of pulled up, and that kind of put my training on pause. So that was 6 weeks out. So it wasn't ideal. 6 weeks out from the event. And as much as I felt I needed to train for this event, I knew that if I trained through this Achilles injury, it was just going to make it worse. So essentially, I went into the event untrained. So I lined up for this event on on the day, having not trained for 6 weeks, and look, it wasn't ideal, but I did it. I finished the event. Um, not my best time ever, understandably, because I hadn't trained for it, but I finished, and that was my tenth treble breakwall buster at the Port Macquarie Running Festival, done and dusted, complete. So there's three of us that have done this event 10 years in a row. So yeah, pretty happy with myself for having completed that. Um, Even though it wasn't ideal, my training wasn't ideal. It's a lot slower than I had hoped to do it in, but yeah, I'm finished, done it. I'm up there with Brad and Mel as the only three people that have done all 10 of these events, and I'm actually the only one that have done all 10 of these events wearing a kilt. Um, so there you go, a little bit of a claim to fame there. I actually crossed the finish line after doing the final event, after doing the 5K. Did the half marathon first and 10K and 5K, crossed the finish line, and um, someone came to me with a microphone and a camera and started asking me questions, um, which was, I haven't seen the replay yet, but it's out there somewhere. Um, Asking me questions. I think she asked me how I felt, and I said busted. Yeah, so like a little 5 second, 5, 10 second interview there I had when I was completely knackered after crossing the finish line. It's quite a hot day too, even though March is technically autumn and it should start cooling down. It was still about 30, 35, 37 degrees. Um, that's Celsius, guys. So don't know what that is in the other um, in in the other Fahrenheit thing. But yeah, that's pretty hot. And as for what I've got coming up next, I'm not actually registered for any runs at the moment. Not to say I won't do anymore. Just now on the lookout for a few different ones. I think something a bit different. Maybe another one in New Zealand or another state of Australia, Tasmania. Um, the Loch Ness Marathon definitely isn't on the cards this year, unless someone comes to me with a, a big wad of money so I can fund this trip to Scotland and do the Loch Ness Marathon. But look, hey, if anyone's got any suggestion on any running events, on not only running events, maybe like obstacle races, strongman events, anything, I'll have a crack at most things. If you know of anything coming up, um, send me a link. I'll check it out. So anyway, guys, thank you for listening. As I said, I'm going to pop another episode out on this Friday. So quick turnaround. As I said, I'm playing catch up because I missed 2 weeks. So check out my next episode on Friday. See you later. Bye.